Hey, Alec. Good to see you, homie. Much love, buddy. I hope everyone's having a lovely day out there. I'm just getting things fired up. I appreciate your patience. Of course, everyone in their grandma is going to start immediately pinging me the minute I go live. Not several hours early. It's going good. It's going good, Alec. It's a slow, quiet day, but a good day. I just got back from getting some breakfast, and yeah, genuinely, I'm very excited for it. So, it's been a good day. It's been a good day. I'll have to get a game of Magic in sometime. Oh yeah, nah, absolutely. It's been a hot minute since I've really played. I'm not gonna lie, it's one of those, like, lately the formats have been kind of just throwing me off. There's been a lot of hoopla lately. A lot of hoopla. Alright. I think that's basically everything I gotta put out now. I think. Let me just hit the alerts. Let's see. There you go. Cool. Now I can just reblog this on all my other platforms. Everybody and their grandma can see. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in, by the way. Thank you all. It means a ton, genuinely. It truly does. Oh, man. I think I have, like, one more I need to reblog this on, and I'm good. Okay, no, we're good. We're good. I did it! We're good. I can close all the windows and we can officially get to it. Good morning, everyone. I am the last Omnitect, your favorite robot American, and welcome to another art stream. Hope you're all having a lovely day so far. I've been doing alright on my end. It's been pretty quiet in a good way. In the good way. Yeah. We're just kicking things off today. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Gentry, Dolaan, No Fascist, my little anti-fascist Helldiver webcomic, Gentry Dolaan is set in the universe of Helldivers 2, following an Australian engineer turned Helldiver forced into basically into treachery and treason after being captured, and following his adventure, discovering how shitty fascism truly is, and how wonderful direct action can feel. So, I'm having a good time making it. Today we'll also be doing a little bit of work on my other webcomic as well. You're all familiar with, as I click away from that, now we talked about Gentry, there's also Brothers, a tale of treachery and doom, which is my Space Marine Warhammer styled comic. I guess I shouldn't say Warhammer. It is a grim dark future webcomic that involves Space Marines. It is set in one-page rules' grimdark future setting, which very much has a lot of the same overtones as 40k can, but it seems like it's slightly better balanced and also way less litigious. So, yeah. But today, primarily, our focus is going to be on Gentry, Dolaan, and answering some questions that some of you guys have, as well as also engaging in some chats. So, as you guys can see, I've already started this coming week's Gentry comic, and that is right. There is a Gentry comic that's coming up. I am not just tooting my horn about that. I have been working behind the scenes to actually make sure we get the comic done. In addition to the other comic I recently put out, which was the Brothers comic, which I'm just going to give you guys a quick little peek underneath the hood. But yes, I'm very excited about how this one has turned out. Genuinely good stuff. Why is that like that? That's weird. That is really weird. On Earth? Oh, I see what happened. Okay, yeah, there we go. It's because that top part's translucent. That'll do it. It's like, what the hell's going on? There you go. So yes, I've been very excited to work on the Space Marine comic. It's finally getting to the point where we're actually getting to the action-y parts. So I'm really, really excited for that. I know a lot of people have been like, OMNI, the Space Marine Warhammer style comic, the Grimdark Future comic has so much talking in it. And first off, I say, have you read a Warhammer 40k book? It's like 95% just intrigue for days, and then like 2 minutes of the art of the author just splooging over ultra-violence. Thank you, homie, I appreciate you. So, I am slowly building to it. I don't want the whole comic to be nothing but action, because then it's just Action Boys the comic, and that can be fun, but I feel it is important to do one and the other. Gentry's been the same way. In truth, it's also been because Gentry is in a weird position as a webcomic. You have this situation where you're making a webcomic for Helldivers, right? But those of you who have ever played Helldivers would know you die a lot. Like, you die all the time, actually. It is very rare for a lot of players to go through a mission with, like, 0 deaths at, like, moderate levels of play. I tend to play a very conservative, cautious playstyle with Gentry. Like, I tend to be more of a support diver than I am, like, a traditional frontliner. And when I do frontline, it's because I'm blitzing through, doing crazy amounts of damage, and then I pull back. So, I kind of do a strike and fade style that makes me surprisingly survivable. Having a jetpack helps. Can't wait for that hover jetpack. It's gonna be great. I need to buy that so bad. It's 110 medals. So, yeah, long and short, like, Gentry lives a lot longer than other Helldivers, but I'm still, like, nobody plays Helldivers and doesn't occasionally die. So I'm doing my best to try to keep Gentry alive by measuring his involvement. Unlike a normal Helldiver, like, he's not replaceable. He's a traitor. If he dies, the next guy out of the, you know, the next guy thawed out is not gonna be Gentry Dolaan. It's gonna be a totally different character. So I gotta play it a little closer to the chest how the action works. Does not mean I'm not finally getting to the action-y parts. So, I've been thinking about, like, how I'm going to draw the action bits and where we're going to go from here. Let me open this up. Let's actually go to the last comic page. The last comic that we did. That was comic 24? Here we go. So, Gentry had his big grand debut as an actual, like, I believe the proper term would be psyop? So, cyborg operative. And yes, the name was intentionally chosen. Don't shoot the messenger. Actually, Red Right Hand on Blue Sky and on their Discord are the ones you want to blame for that. Gentry's technically part of a larger, like, webcomic / creator movement into Helldivers space. So, cyber operatives are basically, more or less humans who have been cybernetically augmented to fight as traitors. behind Super Earth lines. So, we had our last, like, comic, where Gentry finally showed off that, yes, those cybernetic arms aren't just for show. They actually do work. They do the punchies. And also, I did want to mention, I'm going to be at the end of the stream, like, I'm going to aim to make this one roughly about an hour, give or take. I'm going to make this one about an hour, hour and a half. At the end of the stream, I'm going to answer some questions. And at which point, we'll go from there. So, yeah. Just going to make sure we save these things. Okay, these are all set. I don't want to save changes, don't want to change that. So yeah, we're at the point now where we're getting that action, like, but I wanted to, again, pace it. So, as you can see, whenever I work on these webcomics, I use the template of the last one. That's because you all should see, like, how many layers there are in narrative stuff, in, like, the actual text that I have my characters say. Like, here for Pelican 10, that'd be, here we go, Hector. For Hector's speech, he's got a total of, if I go with the primary text, yeah, that's the first bit. He's got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers, I believe that's correct. No, 10 layers. 10 layers to provide depth to the actual text. And why? Because if I don't outline it like this, it's not very legible. So it takes a lot of doing. And it's just easier for me to just copy the template from the last page and change the text and move it around. It is me to do it fresh every single time. It would be impossible for me to do that if I had to do from scratch with no template this every single time. I would go insane. So let's go through here, make sure everything else is closed. So we're just going to turn off the background, turn off the foreground, turn off the narrative dialogue. We're going to open up a new sketch. We're just going to do a little sketchy here. Start the work on the next panel. So I'm thinking what we're going to do here. Here we go. There we are. So I'm trying to provide some context to the scene here, because I needed a little excuse to have some action. And there's a part of me that's kind of like, oh, I could just have him extract immediately and then be done. But I'm like, no, we built up to this. I know a lot of people have been like, they want to see Gentry go action man, and I don't want to deny people that. So, at least a little bit. I actually don't want to deny myself that. I've been working on this long enough where I really want to do the action scenes. So, I'm thinking what we're going to do is we're going to have an excuse for why Gentry's going to have to do a little more fighting. And I have some ideas. And also, very quickly, I'm just going to take a look. So, I've literally been, like, referencing actual footage from the video game to figure out how things work. So, okay, it's got the fins on the back, and then the central turret rotates on that thing, it looks like. Yeah, okay. So this is actually a Pelican from Helldivers 2. So the back part articulates. Oh yeah, also, if you were curious what Hector's gear came from, since a couple of you have mentioned it once or twice, let me just open this up. It's going to be actually in, here we go, Arc 2. You can see it a little more clearly, but yes, he's absolutely wearing the Legionary armor from the Helldivers War Bond. I figure it makes sense, like modified Legionary armor basically is just a pilot jumpsuit, right? So that's kind of what we're going with here. Pretty much the same thing. I had changed the direction the hose goes, and I sort of swapped around what the plates are and such. I wanted to make it more of a pilot-friendly gear, so a little more compact, a little less bulky. No cape because the dude's sitting in a chair 24/7. As much as capes are awesome, I suspect his cape is entirely... I believe technically Helldivers are the only ones who get capes. But I like to imagine that, like, as someone who serves with the Helldivers, he probably has, like, an honorary cape or something for dress affair. But if I'm getting in and out of a chair I'm not wearing that cape. That's nuts. So yeah. Little details like that. So people have been wondering how I've been getting the engines so accurate every single time. That's how. Let's open up the actual version I used. Okay, good. So it's a singular plate. The singular plate, that works. That actually makes it a lot easier for me. For what I'm planning on doing. So let's see, we're just going to have these guys down at the bottom. So I kind of like the idea of them looking up to sort of see the engines on the Pelican being damaged. This is one of the toughest proportions to nail, if I'm being honest with you. Like, looking up at something is not easy to draw. There we go. And we're not going to need all of this, but I just want to kind of draw it, just so I can challenge myself a little bit. Also in case I change anything on the upper layer. So in one of the prior panels, Gentry actually, Gentry wasn't there yet, but as one of the, I believe it was as Hector was landing. Yeah, here we go. So Hector lands, gets out, looks for Gentry, gets shot at by a bunch of bots, but then, immediately afterward, a grenade gets thrown, he gets blasted clear. And I didn't really show any of the damage to the Pelican, because I figured, I mean, if you've ever seen, like, the game, the Pelicans are so heavily armored. They are so heavily armored. Those things shrug off an insane amount of damage. But I figure, like everything, that's probably a game mechanic. I'm not sure, we do know they can break. The physics of a Pelican can break, and I presume at that moment the Pelican actually breaks. So we're sort of just working around with the idea that the Pelican isn't completely invulnerable, just really durable. So we're going to give that grenade some consequences. Okay, now if I pick that up, yeah, that's much better. Okay. So we got ourselves one guy. Got ourselves the other. So I kind of like the idea of, like, I think it'd probably be Gentry going like, so I'm guessing it's not supposed to do that. Like, that doesn't look normal. He's gesturing up towards one of, like, the damaged engine nacelles. Go. are. And just do a little bit there. It's so funny because the angle I'm drawing it at is going to look a lot better when it's done. But right now, it just sort of makes them look... it makes them look like Deadpool after he gets his legs blown off. Got the baby legs. It's proportion, right? It's proportion is what it is. I kind of want to make him a little taller than Hector. Not a lot, but a little. Like, if he's staying next to him, I want him to be a little bit the larger. Okay, so that's Gentry. That's Hector. And I always color code these as well, by the way. It just makes things easier for me later on. Hector, Gentry. Okay, cool. So let's make it orange. I don't think there's any orange characters otherwise. Alright, cool. So I can take both of these clowns, move them further up, and over both of them, we're going to start the pelican. Which I will reference here for myself. I actually had the pelican that I've drawn before right here. Because technically his pelican isn't a normal pelican, it's a heavy lift pelican variant. Basically a snub-nosed heavy lift pelican. After all, Gentry was one of the first guys to design the exosuits by his canon, so as a result, he's probably also the guy who helped design like the mechanisms by which they're carried. So I figure Hector was probably his test pilot when he was going through that initial phase of like development. All right. So let's see. So we have that. So we need the pelican. Let's get the sketch. Okay. So we'll have it facing like that. And we have this sort of articulation point. So we're going to draw it undamaged, and then we're going to render it basically with a bunch of battle damage. I go with the Halo method of rendering my battle damage. I take an existing model, and then I kind of just show it. Right, so he's got the... So we've got the elevators slash, in this case, the ailerons. And if anyone out there is an actual pilot or a actual, like, mechanic, please forgive me. I am neither of these things. Hold on. I have one of them on tap, though. Let's see. Hold on. I guess rudder would be the term. Let me actually just... I want to clarify this for myself. Control surfaces. aircraft tail. Alright, here we go. So it is a rudder. I was right. It's just a rudder. That feels so weird to say. It's just a rudder. But yeah, I guess that is correct. We can shrink Gentry and Hector down as well. That looks pretty good. That looks like it's a good scale for them. They're actually looking up. And usually we start at this level of drawing, and then we sort of go from there. No, 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 no. We're not doing that. We're gonna do another sketch. This can be background. Alright, so this is the background sketch. We're gonna have one of the automaton buddies in the background. I'm gonna save this before I go any further because I can just feel it's gonna be one of those days where if I don't save, I will regret it. I will regret it endlessly, and I don't want to regret it. Let's see. Okay. I actually have a reference for my own Berserker chassis, so I'll be using that today. There we go. It's a very specific design to them. It's also very bright out, so you have to pardon me on that. Let's see, so they've got this big square boxy back, just like other Devastator chassis do. I kind of like the idea of just like one of the arms just like on the ground over here. There we go. Just like saw all fucked up. There we go. Okay, cool. So I had it shaped like that. I'll continue the appropriate shape. There we go. I kind of want to have oil leaking out, I think. No. They're on a grate. It wouldn't do that. Okay, that's fair. They're on graded terrain. I need to remember that. I need to keep consistency. Internal consistency. Alright, so we've got that. Let's put this at 25%. Let's make it 45, just keep things easy. And a pelican. Alright, we got Hector. So I can feel out his shape. Because Hector's actually very tall, now that I think about it. I think Hector actually is taller than Gentry. Yeah, because Gentry's 6 foot flat. Hector's like 6'4". Our boy's tall. I intentionally didn't want Gentry to be the tallest thing in the entire comic, as I recall now. You'll have to forgive me, I'm still waking up, so my brain's doing that thing where it's like, oh yes, I need to remember basic decisions I have made once upon a time. Let's actually add that as a layer underneath. There you go. So if I stretch Hector out a little bit vertically, that should work. I usually find that's how I achieve his shape. So I actually have to, like, kinda stretch, like, his proportions out vertically. I just can't bring myself to draw a tall person with a mild case of giantism. For some reason, it just never quite works the way I'd like it to. There you go. Save. Cool. As much as I love the image of Gentry, like, looking taller, like, it is unnecessary. He is not taller. There you go. We're just going to grab all of Gentry here and just shrink him a little bit. Actually, his scale is about right. Let's just make Hector taller. That ought to do it. That makes them proportionately the right heights, more or less. So let's see, so we got that. That's panel 2 more or less sketched out. I really am proud of how Hector turned out. I really like his face. And there is some distinction between Hector and Gentry. For starters, you'll see even with better lighting, Gentry actually is a little bit more on the, he's a little more tan than Hector is. Hector's a little paler. Also, Hector is much longer in the head. And Hector always has his hair combed, like, slicked back. A little bit like the way Gentry used to, but now Gentry's just gonna have, like, his hair falling forward a little bit into his face. Just to make things easier, you know? Alright. So let's see. We're gonna go in here. Turn off the upper layer. Turn off the narrative. Foreground sketch. Background sketch. What the hell? Where is he? Oh, right. He's on his own layer. I almost forgot. Sparks and glow. Color baseline. Yep, that's what I thought. So yeah, if you're ever wondering how this looks, I start with the sketch, which I then begin to add minor detail to. Then I'll add a color baseline underneath. That'll get me the actual, like, volumes I'm looking for. And then we add all the lighting, and that finishes it off. That's usually how I draw pretty much every character in sequence. And you can tell by removing each part. With the sketch, you have the basics, but just not the whole thing. With the color, it just kind of looks like 5th grader's impressionist art. And with just the sparks and the glow, it's cool, but it's like a ghost. You need all 3 pieces for it to work. I'll add Hector. Okay. I should close this whole area here. This is all foreground stuff anyway. Save. Cool. Sketch. We'll start with the basics then. Ourselves one character looking up. Actually, hold on. I like the idea of him looking up and then turning the face. I could probably draw both of them as an echo. Nah, it doesn't look quite the same. So if he's looking up... Yeah, let's have him doing that. Well, we'll have him looking up and we'll just slow it down a little bit. So let's take his actual scale of his head and compare it. Also, a reminder, if anyone out there is currently watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Please do me a huge favor. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to follow. Don't forget to like, all the fun stuff. Well, this is a YouTube channel now, so that sort of thing goes a long way. Here we go. We give him a much more prominent brow than Gentry's got. We give him the pointy beard by comparison. And let's give him a furrowed brow. We sort of give him the rest of his beard going up. That's usually how I do this kind of thing. And give him the sort of sharp angled chin, the cheekbones that he's got. Go. Now I'm actually drawing the person. Now I'm actually drawing. Not just doing a quick, like, rough sketch. So he's got his hair right there. Got a pretty strong widow's peak on Hector. I realized I just drew him kind of like the, I kind of just drew him like the Chad face meme a little bit. Not intentional. Not intentional. I need to poof his hair up a little more in the front. That will definitely help to get his silhouette correct. Gonna save this. And then we get into here. Don't need to give him a brow quite that strong. Sort of get in here, fill out all that spot in there. I kind of like the idea of them all having messy hair as well. Feels appropriate. I don't want them to all be coiffed. Like, Hector takes care of himself, sure, but, like, he's still wearing a helmet 90% of the time. That plays havoc with your hair, no matter how much you give a shit about it. There we go. So then we're gonna go over here, get like the puff that he's got around his neck. This is just gonna be Hector. Save. This is where I actually have to open up my Hector reference. He's under Seath. Yes, I do actually have a Hector reference. Okay, cool. So he's got the metal plates that lead down to his ventilator system. So that comes down to about back here. There we go. And sort of put that there. Also, a reminder that all music that's provided and that's used inside this stream is, in fact, royalty-free and publicly available. You can find all the links to it right below inside of the doobly-doo. The description, the description. Please feel free to go give some love to these guys. Scott Buckley and White Bat Audio are both incredible resources for content creators, especially young ones like me. I am not sponsored. I am still a youngin' in this space, which is very weird to say after streaming for over almost a decade now, that I'm in a new space. But I am, and folks like this are super helpful. Alright, Hector's looking pretty good there. So you got our Hector sketch, he's got our Gentry sketch. So we're going to work on a hand here. And this is where I start getting the actual references going. Not that thing. There we go. There you go. So I actually do have a Gentry, like, reference sheet that I've been using. It's not much, but it's something. Let's see. So I kind of want it to go about here. I want it to sort of go down a little bit. Let's move that forward a little bit more. I kind of want the helmet to be a little out of focus, but I want to still be able to see the eyes. There we go. That should be far enough forward where we can see the eyes. There we are. Alright, it's coming along pretty smoothly now. We're doing pretty good here. And like I said, once we're a little further ahead, I intend on answering a couple of frequently asked questions. For the record, for those of you who are curious and who want to support the channel, you can actually support us, probably best, not just by subscribing and liking and sharing, that always is nice, but actually, the best place to do that would be at my Patreon. I do, in fact, have a Patreon, and it is still relatively new. If you want to throw me actual coin, and you like my webcomics, that's where you're going to want to do it. Just posted the link inside the chat. Please feel free. I understand everyone's very tight right now financially. Trust me on that. I get that. Are we making friends or enemies today? Oh, we are making friends. We're making friends. How you doing, Paul? Good to see ya. Good to see ya, homie. At least for the moment, anyway, I'm making friends. Just doing a little bit of webcomic doodly-doo. How goes your day, my friend? There we go. Everyone, by the way, if you haven't followed Paul Ampersand's an incredible friend of the channel. Seriously, go follow. Awesome creator. Genuinely love his work. His Homebrew Havoc has been an incredibly fun show. And also, he's just a generally awesome dude. Plus, also on my, on one of my streams. In fact, will be both of my TTRPG streams on Unicorn Head Studios, my other sister channel on YouTube. There we go. So that'll do. That gives us that look, so we get that nice glare going here. We're going to add a layer under here. This is going to be Gentry. I like to think this is like Survivor Gentry. I'm just going to sort of name them, kind of like the way Batman suits. Does anyone remember how, like, the old Batman toys in, like, the early 90s? There was, like, a million different versions of each toy, right? It wasn't just, oh, it's Batman from the hit movie Batman, Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. It's like, no, Batman with icy battle suit skating action. Like, that's kind of how I treat Gentry's kit. I'm well. I had a nap, very much needed. Good, good. Rest up, homie. Lord knows we all need it right now. There we are. So that gives us a good, like, gauge as to what the page looks like. That'll do. We're just going to merge this down because I accidentally added more line art onto the layer below, and I don't want that. We're going to save this. Gentry sketch. Gentry shade. There we go. Okay, now I can just go in here and block shit out, actually. And this will give us the actual, like, volume of the character for me to work with. Should probably also put, like, one of the other antennas on the other side. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't feel like it's Gentry without his Common Rider style antenna. I realize more and more that I basically just made Gentry into a Common Rider Helldiver, and I'm kind of alright with that. Not gonna lie. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get this, like, not hopefully. I really want to get this done by the end of the week. Because then I can begin working immediately on the next Space Marine comic, and then to the next Gentry. My goal is to get 3 weeks ahead of what you all are reading. So this webcomic will be out not this week coming, but 2 weeks from that. Now, if you follow me on Patreon, you know, pay at literally any level, which is like $6, is like the least I ask. Then you get access to all my webcomics 2 weeks early, just to make things easy. And Gentry and my Space Marine webcomic alternate every other week now, so basically it means that you guys will get access to Gentry as opposed to on the 17th, which is what it's looking like it'll be. For everyone else, it'll be the 3rd. So it's a pretty big deal. Would it be? Actually, sorry. It'd be the 1st. Get them. Ooh. No April Fools. I love that. That's so great. Okay, so now you get in here, kind of hit the volumes a little bit, add the shading so I have a good sense of scale as to how bulky he is by comparison. I gotta say, I actually really kind of like drawing the Helldiver here. It's really satisfying, kind of like military tech style stuff. It's very good. It's so perfectly detailed, you know. So what have you been up to, Paul? What's things been like over by you? It's like over here. I'm gonna go into the Gentry sketch again. I'm gonna add a little extra shading here, because I want to make sure I'm doing that. Because this area especially needs to be shaded extra deeply, because this is kind of where his like little mouth part is. So that needs to be like the darkest part of him. Let's do a Gentry light bit now. Zoom in on that. There we go. Okay. So now you can get into there, and that'll be a hard light sketch on here. There we go. So is there anything big coming down the pipe for you this week, Paul? Any big projects or anything? Any big streams that you feel like shouting out? Because you know I love to shout out my friends, especially the awesome ones like you. There we go. And then we get the little scanning. I kind of figure this is sort of like a sonar sensor of some kind, or like EM sensor that hangs out underneath his, right over, like, the bridge of his armor's nose. Gives it a very distinctive aesthetic, you know. Okay. So we're gonna just... Cool, cool. Okay. So that gives us a good start. Now let's zoom in a little more and get a harsher, stronger... I think that neon yellow is the right color. Let's do it. I kind of like the image this gives. Of, like, just not quite dead eyes, but, like, that the eyes themselves are both hollow and super intense. It's a very good vibe. It also forces me to rely very much on the position of the head and the body language to convey emotion. It's Mandalorian rules, right? Like, you know, you can have your own, like... You have to have, like, a kind of... a very specific type of body language to convey stuff like that. His eyes are a little too far apart, I feel. That's a little better. That should work. Yeah, that gives it a slightly better, like, angle to it. I'm basically having to rely on, like, my 40k helmet design ethos here, which is, the eye's got a face somewhere. Yeah, that gives us a hell of a glare. I dig that. I'm gonna slightly lower my screen over here just a tad. There we go. Get it a little bit less bright. There's this one car I just want to throw a brick at out there because the light is so perfectly positioned that it just ricochets off their car hood and hits me. Ooh. Just want to go out there and take it apart. Alright, so we've got our light effect. That feels pretty good. We can't really see the top of his antennae from here, so I don't have to worry about the Kamen Rider glow bits at the tips. I do need to work on this part of the sketch here. There's like one part where his helmet is actually dinged up a little bit. Just need to make sure I get that. Other than that, it looks good to me. Let's put that at 25%. So we can start seeing some of the angles. Here we go. There we go. So we're actually starting to get some real shapes going on here. This feels pretty good. The funny thing is, the background is actually going to be real easy because I actually have a good background for this already. Like, it's just that easy. Just dropping it in. So I need to get an actual volume underneath them so they're not completely dominated by those colors. But other than that, like, it works. I'm going to grab a base color here because that's the color that I usually use for everyone else. It's gonna be my Gentry base, 100. And I can always trim this down as I need. And I full well intend to do it, by the way. There we go. So that gives us a good, like, sense of where the color needs to be on him. I can sort of come in and trim it down where it's a little too vibrant. Perfect. Alright, so we got that, and I gotta do Hector. And by doing this, this will immediately give us a lot more to work with. And just like that, we have ourselves a pretty good rough color, or like a good rough, like, start of a sketch. I kind of dig it. It's turning out pretty good. And then I can kind of come in behind and use this to sort of feather it out a little more. So I can get the color behind the hair properly without, like, feeling like it's just gotta have that big gray slab behind it. There we go. Not bad, not bad. Okay. I am loving this. I can probably actually go underneath here. And I'm just going to cover everything on this part here. And I can go over onto Gentry and remove the part that sort of conflicts with. There we go. Okay, that works. And that way I can sort of get onto the Gentry layer here. That wasn't what I wanted to do. There we go. 25%. I need to sort of pull that thumb out a little further. Let me actually just do that 75%. So that way the angle feels more natural. There we go, that'll do. I like that. So it's like he's giving him a pat on the shoulder like, I got you. Let me go buy you a few minutes. Which is kind of what I'm going for here. Which is kind of also just my excuse of, like, you know, though, let me go buy you a few minutes. Let me go kick some ass for a little while. Kind of establishing the Master Chief and, oh god, I didn't realize how much Hector apes... There's an existing character, that I can think of. Hold on. Let's see. Fernando Esperanza. That's his name. I didn't even realize, but, like, I guess, in a weird kind of way, Hector is sort of a localized equivalent of the Halo Infinite pilot character. Like, I feel a little bit more justified in that, because I'm actually Puerto Rican, so, like, this is me putting a Puerto Rican character into, or it's super Puerto Rican, character into a Helldivers comic. And the pilot just felt like a natural choice for me. But, like, I guess that might be why, in part. That's just very funny to me. I hadn't even thought of that. Ah, goodness. Goodness gracious. The things you don't think about. Alright. Let's get the baseline of the armor going. Okay. This is going to be a Gentry color. Alright. So Gentry's helmet is weird, because he's actually kit bashed from like 8 different component parts here. So he has the brown off of the top plate right there. And these antennae are also the same shade, because they're actually from the Drone Master kit, but insulated in the same insulation as the... Hold on. There we go. They're insulated in the same insulation as the arc gear is. There we go. So the base coloration works fine for the rest of that, so we just need to get the actual build up to the appropriate color here. Here we go. Okay. So they had this like beigey kind of shade to it. Whereas this, slightly browner. There we go. So it's a little darker. Oh, that's why. It's like, why isn't it coming in right? Oh, that would do it. There we go. And we can get in here, sort of touch the little parts that are supposed to be beige up a little more. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Let's hit this with some of the brighter parts. Get to the lights at this point. A little too strong on that. I want to lower that a little bit. Let's make that 25, 45? 45 feels better. go. Get that Common Rider metal mouth thing going. They got that really cool kind of like almost segmented insect kind of mouth. And for the record, that does not move. That's not like Gentry actually has a mouth there. It's just a cool little stabilizer piece. As fun as the Transformers mouth might be on Gentry, I'm gonna avoid that for obvious reasons. There are other characters in the environment that have that, and we don't need that. Yeah, there we go. And we can sort of have like the little bits of metal here. Go. Get to up here. Catch that. Right. That actually looks pretty good. I'm really happy with how that's turned out. Gentry's face is actually looking pretty good. And that's tough to do, I'm not gonna lie. That's really tough to do. Highlight. There we go. So we're gonna take that. Then we had to get the hands. Go. So the hands on Gentry's gauntlet are kind of a little bit like the automail hands from Full Metal Alchemist. They sort of have that same shape to them, but they're very much almost like gauntlet fingers of a medieval, like, oh, literally a medieval gauntlet, like plate mail gauntlet, where each one is segmented, at least at this stage. I might keep it that way. I'm not gonna lie, I just really like the aesthetic of it. It also makes it very easy for me to immediately like pick out the shape of his hands. Which is something that's actually really tough to do under normal circumstances. I'm not gonna lie. Drawing hands is tough. And if anyone ever says otherwise, they are lying. They are so lying. They are lying for I don't know what reason to make you feel bad. It's not easy. You can get good with practice, but anyone who says that it's easy, they're full of shit. They are full of shit. Let's go with a dark shade here. We're gonna get under the Gentry color layer here, and we're gonna get his cloak. Cool. Next, we're gonna go to the slightly brighter layer. There we are. So we can sort of designate that there is in fact color here present. There we are. We're going to go to the edge highlight section. Alright, cool. Starting to get to that part of the stream where I think I'm going to start taking some of those questions that you guys have been asking. I got about, like, 7 so far, so we're not going to blast through all of them. I'm going to choose probably, like, 2 to 3. One from each person, I think. So that way we can actually get, like, a little diversity, you know? I don't want one person to just dominate the conversation. Cool. Alright, I feel like that's a great start right there. That's such a great start for the webcomic. So, I've got panel 2 pretty much, like, I gotta nail Hector, but Gentry's done. I just gotta really hit with, like, the extreme edge highlighting and shading, the directional shading from the light, but, like, be good. Alright, let's take a moment while I put this up in the background, save it, and I will go over here to my Discord and pop this up. Let's see. Okay. Going through the list of what we got here. So these questions so far have been asked in the lore Q&A section of the Red Right Hands server. Red Right Hand, again, good friend, awesome creator that I work with, specifically on the Treason Tuesdays / Traitor Divers space of the webcomic of the Helldivers 2 community. So if you heard Gentry, Dolaan Ain't No Fascist, and Delaney, the hero of Mort, then you probably know these two characters through that. Oh, I do have my own Discord. I keep forgetting to post that up. So we'll talk about that afterward. Let's go to the questions for, the questions for me. Questions for the webcomic. Alright, so here's some questions for the webcomic. For starters, let's see. Here we go. Okay. I would say we'll start with Silence from Discord. Silence's question: is there anything Gentry regrets? Is there anything he would do again? No question. That is a great, great question. If I'm being honest with you, I feel like Gentry is the kind of person that does his best to live his life without regrets. And so, like, if I think there is one thing he does regret the most, if he had to go back and choose, it would probably be being, like, so compliant. I made Gentry, like I make a lot of the characters in both my tabletop role-playing games and my webcomics. I make these characters to explore me, to explore my experience as a person, day to day, as everyone does, right? Like, there's no such thing as a character that isn't in some way, shape, or form either an autobiography or an inspirational piece by someone else. Someone inspired something in that character, and usually the author is the thing that inspires a lot of these characters. Gentry rose out of, one, my love for Helldivers 2, but the fact that I'm not very happy with the way things are right now in the world. I don't think that's not a very political statement. You guys on Blue Sky know I already dropped my political statements all over the place. I'm perfectly fine with doing that. I have no issue whatsoever. But right now, the world is in a very weird state. And where it is, thank you, I appreciate you, Paul, seriously. Where the world is right now isn't just in a state of chaos, it's in a state of active, it's a spasm, a very ruthless, painful place. By the way, that's my blue sky, if anyone wants to go and click on it and follow it, please feel free. You'll get a lot of updates there. The world's in a very painful place right now, and there's a lot of strongmen and dangerous people making their gambits to try to distort the world into something they can prey on. And Gentry, very much to me, is sort of where I sit. I never wanted to be involved. I should say, not that I never wanted to be involved. I never thought of myself as being someone who would be on the front lines of resistance against fascism. And I'm not even on the front lines. I'm like mid-lines, I'd say. I do community organizing and I'm working to fight against fascism, but that's tough. And there are people who are doing way more than me. So I'm not going to pretend I'm out here, you know, flying the flag on the ramparts. I'm not. I'm the guy making the bullets for the guy on the ramparts, metaphorically speaking. I do not advocate violence, because I'm on YouTube. Wink. But, Gentry, as a result, like me, I think his biggest regret is not getting involved sooner. I think that's the toughest thing for a lot of folks to accept in this sort of situation, is the question everyone always asks, you know, if you could go back to Nazi Germany, what would you do, right? And the answer is, you're doing it now, whatever it is. As fascism rises across the world, what are you doing? That's what you would have done back then. And I want to make sure I'm doing myself proud, so that one day, at the end of my days, I can look back and say, well, at least, you know, I did what I could. And hopefully, I genuinely believe we can stop this. We can rise above this bullshit that we're all currently dealing with. I don't believe it's inevitable. I believe, in fact, people who say it's inevitable are feeding a very dangerous, dangerous wolf. And that is the plan. I don't want to be part of that plan. So for Gentry, I think Gentry realizes he's been cordoning away so much of who he is as a person that makes him valuable, that he regrets not getting involved sooner. And as far as the thing he'd do again with no question, strike his colors. Hands down. 100%. In fact, let's go further back. I don't think it's the striking his colors part that he doesn't regret whatsoever. If there's a part he doesn't regret whatsoever, it would likely be this right here. I'm going to open up this comic panel and show you guys. So, it's actually, I guess, on the last one there? Kind of weird. Sure, that's fine. In comic 3 of the first arc of the first comic of the first real arc of Gentry, Dolaan Ain't No Fascist, in Operation Legitimate Understanding, Gentry literally has a chance to evacuate, like right here. He can just fucking leave. And so his fire team realizes that the guy with the super samples, a young cadet, is left behind. And so Gentry makes an assessment. His mech is fucked. Radiator's failing. Left leg is broken. He has barely any ammo. If he goes back, his mech won't come around. Like, there's no way he's gonna be able to pull that mech back to extraction. And so his fire team gives him asks him the question, go or no go. And so he willingly goes for the kid. And I think, you know, like you said, like the man said, the man being Harlan, by the way, you finally met the man who called him a big dumb hero. You know, like the man said, big dumb hero. And so he goes back for this cadet. They help him extract, and while they help him extract, he covers their retreat. And in doing so, Gentry actually gets left behind and overwhelmed. And that's actually what leads to his capture. I think Gentry doesn't regret a bit of it. I think this moment here is the moment where Gentry realizes who he really is. And that who he is doesn't just have value, but who he is can maybe do incredible things. So yeah, silence. You wanted an answer to that question? There you go. So let's take a look. I will answer one more question before we wrap up stream. Let's see. Because we got a bunch of great questions. I'm going to start with the... Actually, you know what? We'll do two. We'll do two more questions. Here we go. So, Zelier Jervik, an awesome commissioner of mine, who I think he's an awesome dude. So, he asked this question. You said this was going to be a years-long comic. Spoilers for those of you who don't know, I'm planning on making Gentry, like, over the course of years. I'm not planning on releasing, like, at the end of a couple of months. I'm going to keep working on this until I'm bored of it, basically. This is a webcomic, a real webcomic. I have like an end goal, but it's intentionally, it'll get there when we get there. Do you have an ending in mind for Gentry / Smug Soda Man, or are you still deciding on that? Smug Soda Man, as the joke goes, refers specifically to my character known as the Coordinator, which you guys have probably seen once or twice of. That's the Coordinator. Called Smug Soda Man because, well, his head pops out, basically. So, hold on, let's see. We're gonna just close that. Let's open that. So yeah, that's his icon. So everyone just calls him, so I call him Smug Soda Man, because literally his head is a cylinder instead of a big armature that keeps him cool. What is my plan for them? I do have a plan. I have been thinking about it. I would be lying if I said I didn't. But I don't want to give anything away. I do have a plan. I have character arcs in my head, in the direction I want them to move. Now, I am open to them changing. Anyone who's ever been a GM, and for my audience, I know there's at least 2 of you who are watching at this very moment who know exactly what I'm talking about, or you might have a good idea of the direction in which a game or like a character is going to go. You have an NPC or a bad guy that you have already written out, you know what they're going to be doing, but you're open to that suddenly changing. I want my characters to develop organically throughout the comic. I want their development to be steady and paced, and while they'll have moments of extraordinary revelation, like Gentry basically going from this scared recruit to... I mean, let's be real, like... He's like this close to doing the "give me a weapon" bit from Halo. In this panel, he went very quickly from his feared and afraid state to "fuck it, we ball." But I want those moments to be earned, and I don't want them to be constant. I want people to slowly grow. If I were to choose like a thing that's inspired me for the actual plot, like development pace that I want to go for, Andor. I'm thinking Andor. If anyone out there enjoyed Andor, this is Helldiver Andor, more or less. So I do have a plan and an ending in mind for Gentry and Smug Soda Man, but I'm willing to let that change if the story will be better for it. And I don't know if that's even close enough on the horizon or not to like really say one way or another. I don't see myself stopping doing this comic in 2025. I see this at least going till 2026, maybe 2027. I'm already up to 124 panels that I've drawn. 124 panels. I know because I had to upload all of them to my Patreon the other day. So I'm clearly on a roll. I'm not stopping. So yeah, there's your question. There's your question answered, Z. Do I have an ending in mind for those characters? The final question is from the DM. What is Gentry's relationship to his parents? It's a great question. So, this is that moment where I actually get to bust open a funny meme. Here we go. I'm going to open this up. This is actually in the off-episode goofs section here. So I'll make sure I get the right one that actually has the that has the parts I want on it, and a little less of the parts I don't. Here we go. I gotta be real careful with this one. So this is perhaps the most unintentionally important document I've released about Gentry's backstory. A fucking meme. So, I said if you guys got me to 1,000 followers on Blue Sky, I would do a pinup of Gentry. This is the tasteful version. There's a significantly more butt cheeks out version hanging out on my Tumblr, which I should actually put on my Patreon as like just a full-on pinup. I have a full-on pinup version of it. I will do that for you paying patrons. If you want to pay at the see Gentry's ass level of my Patreon, I will have that for you. But yeah, so the reason I bring this up is because this is actually a canon thing in the comic. So the Ministry of Truth in Helldivers, again, I'm not making this up, this is me citing Helldivers. The Ministry of Truth is both in charge of maintaining the psychological well-being of super citizens, which largely means, well, thought crimes and ensuring people are sufficiently patriotic in their civilization, under penalty of being disappeared, death, or re-education. Literally, they give children candy to narc on their parents. That's how insidious the Ministry of Truth is. The Ministry of Truth is also in charge of propaganda on behalf of the Helldivers. And so when Helldivers do awesome, incredible things, they're the guys that basically do the Captain America bit. You all remember the bit. The what was it? Star-Spangled Man with a plan, as he's doing his musical tour. Yeah, that's basically what they do with every successful Helldiver. And Gentry, like a couple of other Helldivers, namely Dolaan from Red Right Hand, again, incredible creator. Both of them have survived incredible stuff. This is a bit of a spoiler, because obviously the implication is Gentry survives Chuhi. It's right there, the survivor of Chuhi. Last man standing, the survivor of Chuhi. Seamo's engineer, Steve Helldiver, true patriot. So he does survive. This is what they do when he gets back. But during this, magazine, Liberty the Citizens Edition, I made the magazine up. I'm very proud of it. Not the first person to use Liberty. That's literally one of the taglines in the game. But it felt right for the Maxim magazine, Sports Illustrated style. You're obviously just buying this to see butt cheeks magazine. Also, that is in credits, by the way. That cost up in the top right, the $25.99, is in credits. And yes, I did my best to throw as many little memes in here as possible. But this part at the bottom is the part I want to focus on, because this is actually the biggest peek. I'm gonna zoom in so you're not staring at Gentry ass. This is the biggest peek at Gentry's backstory that I have unveiled thus far in the comic. And it's on a fucking cheesecake post that I did for Blue Sky. So at the bottom of this magazine is actually an interview that happens with Gentry, canonically, in the comic. It'll happen shortly after Arc 2, which is basically Gentry surviving and getting back, and establishing normalcy. Arcs 0 through 2 have literally just been getting Gentry to where he needs to be to actually do the Gentry stuff I want to do later. You wanted to know, DM, what his relationship with his parents is. The first part of that interview directly relates to that. Quote, right there, I'm going to zoom in here so you all can read it more clearly. From humble beginnings, born to Cyberstanian refugees, fleeing cyborg tyranny, Gentry is Cyberstanian. And for those of you who don't know what Cyberstan is, it is a goofy name. Helldivers 2 loves its goofy names. So does Helldivers 1. In the canon of Helldivers, there was a human colony by the name of Cyberstan. Cyberstan It was called Cyberstan because eventually all of its citizens began to cyborg themselves to more efficiently survive in the mines they were made to work in. And then eventually started augmenting themselves because they realized, hey, it actually makes our lives better and we enjoy being augmented. And so they had this entire transhumanist culture that arose that also got tied to socialism. That they themselves were like, we actually don't want to work for a fascist government. We want to have our own rights and to own our own work and our own labor and to be equal partners in our government. And, well, Super Earth did what most fascist regimes do. They crushed the shit out of it. It went horribly. They actually... It is canon that Super Earth basically did a false flag on Cyberstan by staging a terrorist attack on Cyberstanian soil that killed hundreds, I think actually no, thousands, and a couple of Super Earth citizens, which was all the pretext that Super Earth needed to go to war with the Cyberstanians and the cyborgs. Eventually the cyborgs lost that war and got put into basically, literally into camps, like they're in labor camps on Cyberstan mining. Until they were eventually liberated by the automatons, which are the children of the cyborgs. Literally, like from what I can tell, they were made by the cyborgs. Some people believe they are the cyborgs. I'm leaving that up in the air for you guys. I'll be touching on that in the comic later. But I do have an internal headcanon, which is the comic canon, because the comic is my headcanon. Gentry's family, Gentry's grandmother, was actually born on Cyberstan. She was a cyborg, as was his grandfather. They fled Cyberstan for Super Earth early on during the cyborg revolution. They were one of the first refugees who fled the violence. His grandmother, I don't want to talk too much about because she will be relevant eventually in the comic. However, Gentry's mother actually very much has a close relationship with Gentry. I'm going to zoom out so we're not just staring at Gentry's ass cheeks the whole time. So, Gentry's mother raised him solo. He is I believe the proper term for this would be in vitro fertilization, and namely he's a donor child. So he's a bastard in the strictest sense. He doesn't have a father. At least not a father that he's aware of. But his mother he's very proud of, and she's very proud of him. She's actually the reason he ended up as a CMOS engineer. She's a CMOS engineer. She and her grandmother were both technicians who understood how the cyborging technology worked, which is what led Gentry to eventually become himself an engineer and specialize in robotics, which eventually led him to creating the EXO program, or at least working as a part of it, since I'm not going to pretend he's the sole claimant of it. That takes a lot of effort, which eventually leads to the literal opening of the comic, where Gentry, working at CMOS, because he refuses to allow pilots to die in the EXO, I believe it's the XO-45 at this level? Yeah, XO-45, the first EXO. The first EXO that launched horribly in the actual video game. If you actually played the video game, you know how miserable the EXO was. So yeah, Gentry ends up in CMOS making the XO-45 program, which eventually leads, as I zoom all the way out to the next one, I believe it's comic 13 that this happens? Yeah, comic 12. And while he's working at CMOS, he makes the Octopodes array, which is a medical technician array. Literally a surgical array, robotic surgical array, inspired directly by his mother and grandmother's work in cybernetics. Which actually, entertainingly, is the thing that gives Gentry back his arms. He loses his arms earlier in the comic. I'll let you guys read all the way through. It's a good read. I think it's a decent read anyway. But that invention is the reason he's a cyborg today. The same technology that his grandmother helped pioneer and his mother helped refine for Super Earth and citizens in the modern era, he helped perfect with a team of nurses and such, mostly for weapons, but originally for medicine. So, I think Gentry's relationship with his mother is excellent. And in fact, I think it drives a lot of what he does. So there you go. DM, if you had that question before, I hope that answered it. Gentry's relationship with his mother is good. I highly suspect his mother is very proud of him. I'm not gonna go into much more of that, because again, the grandmother and the mother will become involved in the comic, probably in the next arc or two. So keep an eye out for that. All right, that's about it. We've been going since 11:30. This is about 2 hours, so this feels like a great natural place to wrap it up. Folks, thank you again, all of you who've been tuning in. You're all incredible. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you know that I am just grateful for you all to be here. And if you enjoyed my stream, then thank you. I hope you have a good time. And if you're enjoying my comics, I also hope you're having a good time. You can find more about my comics right here on my Patreon at... Here we go. Just going to pop over here. You can find my Patreon right there in the link that I just posted. My Patreon is currently... Let me just open this up. Here we go. The Last Omnitect. There we go. The Last Omnitect. TTRPGs, webcomics, YouTube. You can just find me at The Last Omnitect, all one word, at Patreon. So patreon.com/The Last Omnitect. You can join me as a free member, and that'll let you read all the prior arcs of all my webcomics. So that'll be the first arc of my Space Marine webcomic, Brothers, A Tale of Treachery and Doom, and arc 0 and 1 of Gentry, Dolaan, Ain't No Fascist, as well as also now, if you join as a, I think it's even like a non-paying member, you can even get all the way up through the second arc. If you do a paying membership, you'll be able to see the webcomics as they're being released 2 weeks before everyone else. And they start from $6 all the way up to, if you really want to throw me money, $50. Please only give what you feel like you can. I know how crazy things are right now, and I don't want it to be a burden on anybody else financially. I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you want to find me on my socials, you can find me right here at Blue Sky. And if you want to read the comics in situ as well, I also have a Tumblr page. But yeah, stay in touch. And I want to thank you all again for tuning in. It means the world. Thank you. And I'll see you out there, Voyagers. Peace. Oh, and do me a favor. Fucking subscribe, like, and share. I'm a small channel. It helps.